Episode 21. That little boy is his son? The rumors spread almost overnight and shocked everyone. The outside world had always considered Bryce to be a cold-hearted person who couldn't have an intimate relationship with any woman. How could he suddenly have a child? When Bryce's parents heard the news, they treated it just as any other rumor. If their ice-cold son really did have a child, they would probably die from happiness. The butler showed them the picture he had secretly taken at the hotel the night before. It was a picture of a little boy pulling at Bryce and looking cute, and the child in the photo looked just like Bryce when he was young. His parents couldn't contain themselves any longer. They looked too similar. Something was up. Bryce heard the rumors but paid no attention. It was a joke. But as he looked at the little boy eating his cake, he felt the beginning of a headache as he recalled everything that had happened that morning. At first, when he found out that Natalie had been kidnapped by her family, he thought there would be trouble, so he prepared to let his subordinates handle the matter. He already had a lot of work to do. But when he tried to leave Liam at the hotel to be taken care of, the boy immediately broke down. Tears flowed down his face as he pulled on Bryce's sleeve and refused to let him go.
Dad, don't leave me behind. Mom hasn't come back yet. I don't want to be alone. I want to go where you go, please.
The little guy cried his eyes out. He continued to pull yesterday's tricks, which left Bryce at his wit's end since he didn't dare to hit him. Liam wasn't even afraid when Bryce told him off, so he had no choice but to bring the boy with him. This was also why the rumor had spread even further that morning. Bryce was at work. He looked at Liam, who was eating with relish on the couch, and put his head in his hands. He could only hope to rescue that troublesome woman quickly so that they wouldn't have to deal with each other anymore. An abrupt knock on the door broke Bryce's train of thought. He lifted his head, and a subordinate came in to deliver a report. When the man entered and saw the cute little boy sitting on the sofa, he was stunned for a moment, but it only took him a second to cover up his curiosity. Having worked for Bryce for so many years, he knew him well, and even though he was very curious, he didn't dare to say anything. Reporting to Bryce was torture for this man. The little boy was so cute that it hurt to stop himself from walking over and pinching his cheek. But Bryce was there. He shoved down the idea, but when he left, he couldn't help taking a few more glances at the boy. Just as the man was about to leave, he bumped into Bryce's parents, who had rushed over when they heard the news. He was about to greet them, but they didn't even look at him. They walked straight over to Bryce. "Son, tell us what has happened." Michelle was an impatient person. She showed Bryce the photo right away, too distracted to notice that Liam was sitting on the sofa. Bryce could feel another headache coming on. "Why are you guys here?" he asked with a frown. He felt like ever since he had met that woman, he couldn't catch a break. "How could we not come? You have a child? What's going on? Where is he now?" Bryce peeked at the couch behind Michelle. It was only then that his parents noticed Liam, who was sitting there eating cake. Noticing that people were staring at him, the little fellow stared back. His innocent expression made him look extremely adorable. He licked the cream off his fingers. He felt like these old people were very kind, and he greeted them. Liam, who spoke softly, didn't care, but Michelle and Robert, who were listening to him, paid close attention. Hearing this childish greeting, Bryce's parents' hearts trembled for an instant. They immediately walked over to Liam. Even Robert, who usually didn't smile, felt completely entranced when he saw him. Not only was he adorable, but he was also endearing. More importantly, he looked just like Bryce when he was young. With a curious heart, Robert asked, "Little guy, what's your name?" Liam blinked his big eyes and answered, "My name is Liam." Bryce's parents looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Michelle moved closer to Liam and hugged him. "Liam, tell Grandma who your mother is." These questions caught Liam off guard. Just as he was about to reply, Bryce walked over. Seeing him, Liam was very happy. He forgot to answer and instantly called out sweetly,
Dad!
Bryce frowned. This little guy was doing it on purpose. When Michelle heard this, she could not sit still any longer. She looked at Bryce reproachfully and said, Tell us what happened. The child is calling you Dad. Who is his mother? Did you leave her after she got pregnant? Has she come looking for you yet? Michelle had already accepted Liam as her grandson. She didn't know why she had this strange feeling, but she had felt very close to him the moment she saw him. Veins popped out on Bryce's forehead. Suddenly, the image of Natalie's face appeared in his mind, and he became extremely agitated. He patiently explained to his parents, Liam is not really my son. He just calls me Dad. His mother never denied it and misled him. Bryce felt that he shouldn't have been so soft-hearted as to help that woman and cause so much trouble for himself. But despite his explanation, his parents did not believe him. Anyone could tell that Liam wasn't lying. Robert looked at his son reproachfully. Bryce once again felt frustrated. He did sleep with multiple women, but was always very careful. He had never encountered anything like this. He believed that he never slept with Natalie, so how could he be the father? Suddenly, something flashed through his mind. He didn't know the woman from the night 5 years ago when he had been set up. Bryce looked at Liam, who was still in Michelle's arms. He felt shocked. It's been 5 years since that incident took place, and this little guy looked like he was nearly 5 years old. Episode 22, Save That Woman. Bryce's heart skipped a beat. He had never felt like this before. He was nervous, excited, and even had a little bit of anticipation. Liam, tell me, how old are you this year? He stared at Liam's face, which did look similar to his. At that moment, he saw how surprisingly alike they looked.
I'm 4 years old,
Liam answered honestly. Bryce's eyes flashed. His parents had never seen him look like this. They looked at each other and were even more sure that their son was hiding something from them. When were you born? Which year and which month? He asked with a slight tremble in his voice. He's 4 now, he thought. Could it really have been that night 5 years ago? Liam had never seen his dad this nervous. Since he was young, he could only feel sorry for him without knowing the reason behind it. He lowered his head and thought for a moment before saying,
I was born on November 5th.
The light in Bryce's eyes dimmed. He shook his head in disappointment. The date of birth didn't match. He must be mistaken. He vaguely remembered that he and that woman had been together in March of that year, and Liam had been born in November. Plus, he and the woman had only spent 1 night together, so it was impossible for her to get pregnant that easily. He felt relieved and stopped looking at Liam. He said to his parents calmly, This is not my child, I'm sure. But he didn't know that Natalie had given birth prematurely due to her poor health abroad. Bryce's parents knew that he would not lie about this sort of thing, so when he told them that Liam was not his child, they were filled with disappointment. He wasn't their grandson, so it didn't matter how much they liked him. Michelle hugged Liam tighter. She sighed and asked, Then what should we do now? How did this child find you? Bryce was a powerful man. Although Liam wasn't his child, there was no guarantee that someone wouldn't exploit this opportunity. Michelle couldn't help but worry and wonder whether Liam had been used somehow. This matter is a little complicated. You don't have to worry about it. Bryce frowned. He clearly didn't want to explain any more about it. Just thinking about Natalie gave him a headache. Liam looked at Bryce and his parents and explained,
Mom was taken away by bad people. Dad said he would bring Mom back, so I'll wait here for her.
Although he was young, his speech was clear, like an adult. Michelle glanced at the boy in her arms with a complicated expression. Then she put him down on the couch and pulled Bryce aside. Bryce, she said, if this isn't your child, then where is the father? Why does he call you Dad all the time? And what happened to his mother? Bryce let out a long sigh. He had no choice but to explain.
Liam is from a single-parent family. His mother takes care of him alone, and he has no father. Maybe because he thinks that I look like his father, he couldn't help but call me Dad.
The moment he said this, Bryce felt surprised. Was he speaking for Liam? Michelle looked at Liam, who was still sitting on the couch with a pained expression. She hadn't expected him to be fatherless, and she sighed and said,
"Then what are you going to do?"
Bryce also shifted his gaze to Liam. Remembering how the boy had cried in his arms, his heart softened and he said,
"I promised that I would save his mother. Then we will never have anything to do with each other again."
Michelle nodded with some understanding, but she was a little surprised. She knew her son best, and he hated trouble. But now it seemed he couldn't bear to treat this child harshly. This was truly a rare sight. She thought for a while and said, "How about this? It's not convenient for Liam to be with you all the time. Right now, you have work to do. We will look after him. And when you get his mom back, then you can return him to her." Bryce nodded. It was indeed inconvenient for the child to stay with him, so he reached out to call Liam. Seeing his dad wave, Liam obediently jumped down from the sofa and ran over to him. He called out sweetly,
"Yes, Dad."
Bryce's expression changed for a moment. For some reason, he suddenly felt reluctant to let him go. But he said to him coldly,
"Liam, you have to go with my parents right now, as I have things to take care of. I'll find your mother. Will you wait for her to come and pick you up?"
He didn't know that when he talked to Liam like this, tenderness was etched all over his face. His parents looked at each other with complicated expressions as their hearts filled with bewilderment. Liam nodded. He knew that his dad was really busy and that he could not continue to mess around. So he followed his grandparents. After they left, the huge office finally fell quiet, and Bryce's headache returned as he thought about how to save that woman. Suddenly, he wondered why he cared so much about her. He could have entrusted this matter to his men. Instead of thinking about such trivial things, he went back to business. Recently, there was a problem with one of his company's projects in a neighboring city. Bryce was very meticulous when he worked, so he went straight to the city on a business trip. He left for 2 days. For those 2 days, Natalie was trapped in the Davidson family home. Her heart burned with anxiety. She was very worried about Liam's safety. At the same time, the harm that her family had done to her had already put her despairing heart on the verge of collapse. Although she was given food, she lost weight because of her worries, which made her look even weaker than before. Since Cheryl had nothing better to do, she brought food to her sister. Seeing her looking like this, she started to feel secretly proud of herself.
"Natalie, are you still not going to contact Bryce? You look so skinny. Soon you'll become ugly. Even if you can wait, can Liam? He's probably starving to death right now."
Hearing Liam's name, Natalie's dim eyes immediately regained their clarity. She looked at Cheryl furiously. "If anything happens to him, I'll bury the entire family, starting with you. I hate you. I hate all of you." She wanted nothing more than to tear Cheryl to shreds. Unfortunately, she was tied tightly. Otherwise, she would have personally taught this little sister of hers a lesson.